What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ryan, and in today's video, we're going to be going over a Steel Song deck that just took home a 10K tournament over the weekend. This deck was piloted by Brennan DeCandio at the CCS 10K tournament. This tournament saw what could be the emergence of a big three of the meta decks, and as we predicted, Steel Song is just super popular. This version of the deck is more aggro focused, so you're going to see things with a lot lower cost and questing for quite a bit to get you a good combo of getting a bunch of characters on the board for your sing targets, while also being able to quest for quite a lot very quickly. Before we get into the deck list, I just wanted to thank anyone that's tuned in and subscribed to the channel. The growth here has been amazing recently, and I know it's been a couple days since I've posted last, and that's kind of what happens as a parent of a newborn, but I think we're really starting to get a hang of it until we hit our next hurdle. Thank you guys for continuing to watch, and I hope to bring you more content as often as possible, so thank you guys again as we make our way onto that 1,000 subscriber goal. So starting off with this deck, for our one cost, we are going to have a Cinderella Singer 3, as well as the Robin Hood Beloved Outlaw. These two cards are both going to allow us to play things earlier than we're supposed to. With Cinderella, we're going to be able to sing our songs a lot sooner. And with Robin Hood, obviously he's going to be the shift target for the big Robin Hood to play our 5-cost songs or get our big, or have a big challenger on the board. Nothing crazy here in the 1-drops, but in the 2-drops, he actually played with 3 copies of Piglet, Pooh Pirate Captain, and 4 copies of the Ursula Vanessa card. I think on turn 2, Ursula is the better play, allowing you to play your 4-cost songs on turn 3, like your And Then Along Came Zeus. Piglet's here to get a lot of lore once you have all those characters onto the board. And then another card to take a look at for turn 2, if you don't get Vanessa, would be the Mr. Smee, just being able to get a 3/3 body onto the board that quests for 2 and takes a little bit of damage, which could help out with our card draw later on in the deck list, but also very good for an aggressive line in any steel deck. And then, as is pretty standard for your song decks, he's included 4 copies of the Ariel Spectacular Singer. Allows you to go a little bit deeper into your deck, pull out songs that you need, as well as is able to sing 5-cost songs once you get her ready. All right, and then 2 new cards that have been added in with Shimmering Skies for this deck. First up is going to be the 3-cost Pete Games Referee. This card is going to be a staple for most steel decks, allowing you to freeze out your opponent from playing any actions. This allows more aggressive decks, like the one we see here, to go pretty wide with the safety of not having to worry about a Be Prepared wipe or like a Grab Your Swords wipe, and then allowing you to take advantage of that with all those extra characters on the board once they're all ready to quest or sing or whatever. He also ran 4 copies of the new Prince Naveen. This is a slot that a lot of people have been playing around with. How many Naveens do we run? He is uninkable, and towards the late game he does fall off a little bit because you need to have the good songs in your hand. But with 4 copies, you're almost going to guarantee that you're going to get one pretty early in the game, allowing you to play that high-cost song for free when he enters play, and then he can even sing it on his next turn. He also quests for 2, which goes with the more aggressive line that he ran. All right, and then 2 more staples for Steel Song. It's going to be 4 copies of the Rapunzel Gifted with Healing, allowing you to get some card draw from your damaged characters. You can heal your Smee once he takes damage to get that free card draw. You can even damage your own characters into challenges or with your songs to get a little bit extra card draw. If there's nothing on the board, for example, that you can hit with a Let the Storm Rage On, you can hit your own character with it, draw the card, and then get 2 more cards from healing that damage once you play Rapunzel. Just a very versatile card, and it's shot up again in price, now rivaling some of the more expensive legendaries in Lorcana. And then one of the best shift characters in Steel is Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood. When he's banished in a challenge, he does guarantee you that card draw, and whenever he is challenging things, he's going to get you 2 lore, so you can either have him as a threat to quest, have as a threat to challenge, or as a threat to sing songs early. And then the only late game character that he ran was 3 copies of Cinderella Stout-Hearted. This card is just an absolute beast of a card. It quests for 3, it has a 5/5 stat line, and resists 2, meaning it's going to be really hard to take it off the board unless there's some instant removal, which you can use Pete in most cases to protect against, and then has the ability, whenever you play a song, it can challenge ready characters, allowing it to stay on the board and always be a threat for new things that have been played. He ran 17 songs in this version of the deck, and a lot of the songs that we saw are very standard. You've got your 2 copies of Bare Necessities, 4 copies of Let the Storm Rage On, 4 copies of Strength of the Raging Fire, 4 copies of Along Came Zeus, and 4 copies of A Whole New World. You'll notice that he actually didn't run Grab Your Sword at all, and he opted to run more single target spells. Since he was playing with a lower cost character line, just having more of those single target songs that each of his characters could sing ended up being the preferred package to go with here. And then last up, he did also include 3 copies of the Lantern, allowing him to get even more characters out per turn, or get characters out a little bit earlier for cheaper. All right, so here's what the deck looks like fully laid out. For our gameplay section of the video, I'm gonna put it up against the finals matchup, the Ruby Sapphire that he went up against, and we'll throw in a red purple as well, just so you can see how this deck plays against the potential top meta contenders that we're seeing so far in Shimmering Skies. All right, so here is the Ruby Sapphire deck that he played against in the finals. It's taking advantage of the new Tipo card, the new Chicha, the new Mufasa card, also using Scar for its board wipe, in addition to Be Prepared, so a lot of removal at the back end of the deck, and then using the new Visions of the Future to go really deep for really cheap and pull out the cards that this deck needed to make it to the finals. All right, and then one of the Ruby Amethyst decks that made top 4 in the tournament, you'll see it's very similar to what was played in the last set. The only thing that has changed here is they've actually included the new location, the library, just guaranteeing some extra card draw with a very tanky location that is cheap to move your characters to, and then running pretty much the standard Flynn Rider, the Sisu to get the passive lore, and then playing for the late game with all that removal, the Medusas, the Sisu, the Brawl, the Be Prepared, and then closing out your games with your goats, just bouncing them back and forth, and continually just drawing cards thanks to the Merlin Rabbit, and now this new location, in addition to the Queen's Castle, which we all know how powerful that is as well if you leave it on the board. All right, so we have the finals matchup loaded up here on Inktable. We're going up against Ruby Sapphire. So in this matchup in particular, we're going to want to be very early, very aggressive early, trying to get as much lore as possible in the early game, because we know they're going to want to ramp and get to their big late game removal and high questers, and we want to protect our board as much as possible. All right, since we're going with more of an aggressive opening line, we do want to get rid of like our Ursula, since we have a Smee. I'll get rid of some of the songs and get rid of the Ariel as well, keeping the Robin Hood just so we have a turn 1 play. All right, so we can ink our duplicate Robin Hood and play a Robin Hood. This is great because now on turn 2 we can play Smee. It's going to start accumulating damage that we can later heal with Rapunzel. It's a little early for Pete, so we'll just go ahead and play the Mr. Smee, and we'll get questing with Robin Hood, trying to get as much lore in the early game as quickly as possible while they're doing their ramping. Luckily for us, they did miss a turn 1 play. Let's ink the Cinderella. We can play the Ariel, see what songs we get. Ooh, I would have liked this Robin Hood in 2 turns, but let's go ahead and grab the ink just in case we need it, and then we will quest and quest. All right, so they finally play a character here, which is totally fine. We can go ahead and ink the Ursula. We'll play Prince Naveen. I don't want to waste a Along Came Zeus, but I also want to make sure I have ink to play a 5-cost character if I get it. So I might just end up wasting it here. We're just playing the aggressive early game anyway, and that's why we run 3 copies of Along Came Zeus, just so we have it multiple times. They finally get the Fishbone out, and they're going to be able to start just churning through their cards, churning through that ink. But we are threatening to get to 12 lore on this turn. We get to play our Rapunzel, draw 2 cards off the Smee, keeping him safe for even that much longer. I'm going to go ahead and ink probably going to ink the big Cinderella at this point, and we'll just keep questing. We are in danger of being Be Prepared on this next turn, because they have Fishbone, and they'll be able to ink again. But we're all the way up to 14 lore, so it's not the worst thing in the world. We have some characters we can play next turn as well. There's the 7 lore, or the 7 ink total. We get Be Prepared, but that's the only thing that they can do on their turn, and they don't have any card draw. With just 2 cards in their hand, we are in a great position to hopefully close this out. We'll ink our song, so we can play a Mr. Smee. I also want to play probably the Rapunzel. We'll play Prince Naveen, even though he's not getting the free song. He has questing for 2. These both can be healed by Rapunzel. Now, Scar is a little scary because he will be able to take out both of these. So I think what I need to do in order to hopefully get game here, we'll play Rapunzel and just hope that they don't draw into any removal. So we need to miss things like Madame Medusa. We need to miss Brawl, Be Prepared. Looks like they're attacking with Scar, so probably not a Be Prepared coming. And they pass it right back to us. And just like that, all that early questing that we did got us the early game advantage, closed out the game even though we got Be Prepared. And now let's load up the game against Ruby Amethyst and see if we can beat that as well. All right, matchup number 2 loaded up here on Ink Table. Against Ruby Amethyst, we do need to worry a little bit more about the early game because they're not just going to be focused on all that ramp. So we do need to get things out like our Ursula, like a Cinderella if we see it. We can get rid of Pete. We can get rid of Piglet. I'm going to keep the bare necessities just so we can play that if we see it. Hopefully we can get rid of one of those locations before they come down. And we'll keep the damage song as well. We actually draw into a Robin Hood, which is great. We'll ink our Pete, play the Robin Hood, and we'll just pass. Okay, they get a Flynn on the board, which is totally fine. Unfortunately, with all the Let the Storm Rage On, we don't have another ink besides inking the bare necessities. I'm going to actually play the Lantern here. That way we can play Naveen next turn. And I doubt that they challenge into this. So we'll just try and get a free quest in here. And if they challenge into it, that's fine as well. They don't, which is awesome. We can ink a Robin Hood and then use the Lantern to get our Naveen out, allowing us to play one of our Storm Rage On, which I actually want to get rid of the Broom to prevent card draw. And we get a nice, and then along came Zeus out of it, and we can just quest because the Flynn's not actually doing anything to harm us since we have the strength advantage. Pretty safe leaving them on the board there. We draw our 4th Let the Storm Rage On, which is quite funny. We'll use the Lantern to get out our Ursula for cheaper, and then we will probably just quest here. Like I said, until they get a Sisu or something with a lot of strength onto the board, maybe like a Maui here, we don't need to deal with that Flynn quite yet. Okay, so there's the meta mim. If it challenges into Robin Hood, we can still take it out with our Storm Rage On, and then we'll deny the extra lore for the Flynn. All right, so let's start off with playing just a flat up with the Storm Rage On. We'll get rid of the Madam Mim Fox. We draw into a whole new world. Now we can actually just sing Let the Storm Rage On with, let's go with Ursula. Again, we'll get rid of the Magic Broom, just denying the card draw. We get ink, which is awesome. We will quest with Naveen, and as much as I want to hold on to Cinderella, maybe, you know what? Let's get rid of bare necessities so we can play Cinderella. We actually could have played her for free with Lantern, so definitely a mistake there. But getting to 4 inks is pretty nice too. Just in case we get one of our 5 drops, we can play it with the Lantern. We instead get another Ursula, which we can go ahead and play. I think now I'll finally just go ahead and get rid of the Flynn because we got nothing else to hit into. And we can actually just quest with everything except for Ursula, because we're going to use that Ursula to sing along came Zeus, getting rid of one of their bounce characters. And we'll probably hold on to the ink just in case we get things with damage. We can draw a bunch of cards. There goes the Be Prepared, which is unfortunate for sure, but we can use Lantern. We can get out a Cinderella, get out a Rapunzel, and we still have that board pressure. And we can clear their hand next turn with a whole new world if we draw into some ink here. They get 2 Flynns on the board, so if they get, like right now they have a strength advantage, so pretty scary. We can actually just use the Lantern here to get our Robin Hood out, and that's going to prevent them from getting 6 lore on their turn, while we're still getting lore by questing up to 13. If they don't take anything out next turn, we'll be adding in another 5 at least, getting us up to 18, but they take out Cinderella with the rabbit, and then they bounce it for the card draw. All right, let's go ahead and let's just sing Whole New World with Robin Hood. We get rid of a Be Prepared and a Maui, which is awesome. I wish we still had that Cinderella because we drew into the big Cinderella, but now we actually have some ink finally again. So we can ink something like the Ariel there, use the lantern to play Piglet, and then we have 4 more ink left. Let's play Ariel, see if we can get Bare Necessities. We don't, we get a Long Came Zeus, which is okay. So now we're in a bit of a predicament. I want to just quest to get to 15. We have cards to replace it. They do have a pretty scary board state, but they're gonna have to challenge into us, or they're gonna have to get rid of it all with a Be Prepared. They get a Maui instead, taking our Robin Hood off the board, giving us a card, and it's a Pete. So next turn we can actually play Pete, make sure that we're not gonna get board wiped with Be Prepared. We're gonna get rid of Rapunzel, canceling out Piglet's ability there. All right, so now for sure we are playing Pete this turn. And we're gonna try and close it out on the next turn. So we need to get our big questers out. We can also sing like a Long Came Zeus with Ariel, getting rid of the Maui. We can quest with that Piglet. And now we're gonna force them to either respond with pretty much double removal here. So they need double Medusas in order to take out both Ursula's and Smee. Everything else they can attack into. They get 6 lore from Flynn, which is pretty scary, but they're still pretty far away from winning on this turn. There's the 1 Medusa to get rid of Mr. Smee. Takes out most of their ink though. So the only other option would have been like if they had like a small Sisu, which this deck isn't running. And with that, they actually aren't able to take out both of our characters, leaving the 2 ones that were ready on the board. And we close out the game, and there you have it. There's the strength of an aggro Steel Song, just getting out those early game characters for cheap with the Lantern, being able to get your board fully reset after getting board wiped with Be Prepared. And then you saw we even drew into a Pete to prevent the same thing from happening. Although it looks like they didn't actually have the removal in their hand, but we were protected from it. And that has it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think about this deck. I've said this now for a couple of videos. I think Steel Song is not only going to be the most popular deck in the format, it's going to be one of the best decks. The addition of Pete is just so good. Being able to secure going wide and having that protection. We saw in the Ruby Sapphire deck, they've included things like the Scar to allow them to challenge into us. I think one step further from that is pairing something like Scar with maybe that King Arthur that allows him to challenge into ready characters. Would be really the only way to guarantee a board wipe without the use of abilities. But I haven't seen many people adapt like a Ruby Steel combo yet. I did see people toy around with playing with that Pyros card and King Arthur to pretty much do the same thing as Scar, because he can keep attacking if he's taking things out. And once you play King Arthur, he becomes a 7/4 with resist 2, meaning he can challenge into a lot of things on the opponent's side of the board without getting removed. That might be something that we see even more commonly when decks like this show up to Lorcana challenges and become very mainstream. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching to the end. Be sure to like the video if you like content like this. Although I do love making my own decks, sometimes the best decks in the format are things that we can borrow from other Lumineers, especially ones with a lot more experience in the TCG environment. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will catch you guys next time. See you.